Real Madrid won't play Liverpool this weekend. Barcelona won't face Bayern Munich. Manchester City won't host AC Milan. At first, that sounds completely normal. It shouldn't. These are some of the biggest football clubs on earth. They have hundreds of millions of fans and spend billions on players. So why don't they play each other every single weekend? A few years ago, some of them decided they finally would. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Manchester United, Juventus, AC Milan. 12 of Europe's biggest clubs announced a brand new competition. One league. Only the giants. The biggest matches, week after week. For many new fans, it sounded like the perfect idea. Finally, the best clubs playing the best clubs, all season long. 48 hours later, the entire project was collapsing. Fans protested outside stadiums. Club owners backed away. One of the biggest ideas in football history died before a single match was played, which raises an even bigger question. If Europe has the biggest football clubs in the world, why has it never had one league for all of them? The answer isn't money, it isn't travel, and it isn't because nobody thought of it. The answer begins long before the Champions League, long before television, and even before most of these clubs existed. Football wasn't created as one giant European competition. It grew town by town, city by city. Workers formed teams. Students formed teams. Neighborhoods formed teams. Every community wanted a club that represented them. Liverpool wanted to beat the next town over, not Real Madrid, which didn't even exist yet. That's the part most new fans never hear. Football wasn't designed. It evolved. Every country built its own league because every country already had its own football culture. England built one. Spain built one. Italy built one. Germany built one. France built one. Each league crowned its own champion. Each created rivalries that families have followed for generations. Those leagues weren't waiting for Europe to arrive. They were football. But that created a problem. If England had a champion, and Spain had a champion, Germany had a champion, how could anyone know which club was actually the best in Europe? For decades, there wasn't a perfect answer. Until football found one. Not by replacing the domestic leagues, but by building something above them. And that single decision changed football forever. Football's answer wasn't to replace the domestic leagues. It was to connect them. That solution became the UEFA Champions League. Here's how it works. Every country keeps its own league. England has the Premier League. Spain has La Liga. Germany has the Bundesliga. Italy has Serie A. France has Ligue 1. Each season, every club is fighting for something inside its own country. Win enough, and you don't just become champions. You earn something bigger, a place in the Champions League. That means Real Madrid doesn't have to leave Spain every weekend. Liverpool doesn't stop playing English clubs. Instead, the best teams from each country's league qualify to meet later in Europe. Think of it like this. Your domestic league is the journey. The Champions League is the tournament where the best journeys finally collide. That's why you'll often watch Liverpool play Aston Villa on Saturday, then see them face Barcelona on Wednesday. They're not competing in one competition. They're competing in two. And for decades, that solved the biggest problem in European football. Every country kept its identity. Every local rivalry stayed alive. And fans still got to watch Europe's biggest clubs face each other. So why wasn't everyone happy? Because something strange started happening. Those Champions League nights became the biggest matches in football. Real Madrid against Manchester City. Barcelona against Bayern Munich. Liverpool against AC Milan. Millions of people watched, including fans who had never followed football before. And naturally, they started asking the same question you're probably asking now. If these are the biggest games, why don't they happen every weekend? On the surface, it sounds like the obvious solution. More giant clubs, more blockbuster matches, more entertainment. But football isn't built around 20 famous clubs. It's built around thousands. Some play in capitals. Some represent tiny towns. Some have never won anything. Yet every season, they all begin with the possibility of climbing higher. That's one of the oldest ideas in football. Success isn't given. It's earned. And failure has consequences. Every season, clubs at the bottom of the top division don't simply try again next year. They lose their place. Another club earns the right to replace them. If you've only watched American sports, imagine the worst NFL team not getting the first draft pick, but losing its place in the league altogether. That's normal in football. And that single idea changes everything. Because once places in the league have to be earned, you can't simply reserve permanent seats for the richest clubs. The moment you do, the entire system starts to break. And in 2021, that is exactly what some of Europe's biggest clubs tried to change. The plan became known as the European Super League. The idea was simple. Take some of Europe's biggest clubs, put them in one competition, and let them play each other every season. No waiting months for Champions League draws. No hoping two giants would be paired together. Just blockbuster matches. Every week. On paper, it sounded like a dream. More Real Madrid against Liverpool. More Barcelona against Juventus. More Manchester United against AC Milan. More of the biggest clubs. More television viewers. More money. The clubs behind the project argued that football had changed. The world's biggest audiences weren't just watching from England or Spain anymore. Millions of fans were watching from the United States, Asia, Africa, and almost every corner of the world. Those fans wanted to see the biggest clubs, not necessarily every domestic match. So why not build a competition around exactly that? For a moment, it looked unstoppable. 12 founding clubs announced the project together. Some of the richest owners in football were behind it. The clubs involved had won dozens of European trophies between them. If anyone could change football, surely it was them. Then something unexpected happened. The biggest opposition didn't come from rival clubs. It came from football supporters. Fans flooded the streets. Outside stadiums, thousands gathered carrying banners demanding their clubs pull out. Supporters weren't just angry about a new competition. They believed football's oldest promise was being broken. For generations, clubs had earned success on the pitch. Win enough, and you could rise. Lose enough, and you could fall. The Super League threatened to replace that with something different. Permanent membership. Guaranteed places. The biggest clubs staying at the top, whether they deserved it or not. To many supporters, that wasn't football anymore. It was closed entertainment. And once that trust disappeared, everything unraveled. One club announced it was leaving, then another. Then another. Within 48 hours, most of the founding clubs had withdrawn. One of the most ambitious projects in football history collapsed before anyone kicked a ball. It wasn't because the clubs lacked money. It wasn't because they lacked famous players. It failed because football isn't built only on its biggest clubs. It's built on every club beneath them, on every local rivalry, every promotion dream, every season that starts with hope, even for teams that nobody expects to succeed. That's why Europe never became one giant league. Not because it couldn't, because millions of people decided it shouldn't. And that's why, this weekend, Real Madrid will still play in Spain. Liverpool will still play in England. Bayern Munich will still play in Germany. The biggest clubs in the world remain separated because football chose tradition, local identity, and competition over one massive super league. At first, that makes no sense. Until you realize something. Football was never built to find the richest club. It was built to give every club, no matter how small, a place in the story. And once you understand that, European football suddenly stops looking chaotic. It starts looking beautifully connected.